Hey everybody, Asher here, and it is time for more Roadwarden, where you can see we are picking up exactly where we left off before. We reached Creeks first. We've traveled around the eastern side of the map just a little bit, and right now we are in the bog. The bog at the early part of the day is still kind of dangerous, but you know, we've met some nice people along the way. We had this nice person in this nice shack. And we gave him a ration, and we're going to see what exactly we can do here. Now, there are some places I need to go. We have explored a little bit. This is apparently a crossroads at Foggy Lake that I will want to go up here. And I do have, if I go to my inventory real quick, I did get an indication of what this old blanket is, and it's a clue for one of the missing hunters. But I think it's important that we go ahead. If we got something open in the bog during a day, he said we went one direction, we turned left instead of going right, I think were the exact words. So let's go down the right path and see if we can find something better here. Well, we found some crickets and some flies. That is definitely a start. The leafless plants resemble tree roots rather than creepers, even though they're dark green and sway up and down slightly in the rhythm of a heartbeat. Sodal snorts and speeds up, unwilling to linger underneath the nightmarish gate. As you get to the other side, the plants seem to completely ignore you, so nothing stops me from riding ahead. Well, since it doesn't appear to be any way to stop and look around, I guess maybe if there was something here before that would have been blocking us, because remember, we did have to pay something to block the creepers, the plants that blocks the road to the deeper bogs. Well, they're not blocking us now, so thank you, person, and here we are. The road twists between the flooded purplish grasses. The field ahead of you is still green, bearing the second sowing of broad beans. Maybe the third one if the land allows it. The workers ignore you. Some of them are nothing but bones, some carry scraps of flesh, wearing them like forgotten rags, and others look almost human, as if they were awoken right after death. Most of the witless shells move around piles of soil, carry wooden logs, or dig in the ground with their bare hands, but there are those with considerable abilities. They use pitchforks, hoes, and splitting axes, and confidently cross the uneven ground. There's only a few breathing souls in sight. They observe your passing, but keep their distance. So we can keep our blade in hand just in case, or they aren't attacking me, so I don't need to be afraid. The people who live here seem to have everything under control. Well, this is a sticky wicket, I guess you could say. We have clearly some undead running around here, but they are not actually attacking me. I'm definitely going to keep my blade in hand just in case. The guards let you in without questioning. The entrance and the wall in general were recently constructed, though are still not finished. There will soon yet be another gate, allowing for trade and conversations without opening the village to danger. Just like the fields, the work is divided between the undead, who carry bricks and take care of the most thankless tasks, while the locals cut rocks and spread mortar. The difficult past is still carved in the villagers' gaunt faces and crude outfits, and their brief glances show little curiosity. A few of them are sharing a meal right next to the well, and the victuals in their baskets consist of green leaves, fruits, eggs, and cuts of roasted meat. The food of foragers. You're told to wait for the mayor. Don't roam on your own. The guard's voice is harsh, despite the stutter, that I didn't give it a stutter. So Sodal gets to go to this small shed, I'm guessing right here. The man shows up soon after with a careless saunter, and he hardly spares you look, instead staring at your palfrey. The stranger from the forest garden. I cannot guess why you would come here. Who are you even? His stature would be considered average in most villages, but in comparison to the rest of his tribe, he's portly, muscular, tall, and with a very large square face. His hands are resting on the shaft of the poleaxe placed across his shoulders, making him seem even larger. His long straw-colored beard is shabby and makes his bald head look shiny. You can't really tell how old he is, though you see no wrinkles. Just like the others, he's wearing prominent charms, favoring tiny figurines of animals made of bone and wood. Only one of them is hanging from his neck, a silver amulet portraying the head of a moose, with large antlers. While valuable, it looks older than the other critters, and quite crude in form. So, of course, we have a big person here with a... Well, he's not that big, but clearly there's already some inequality here, so I introduce myself. He sizes you up, and I'm Helvius, Who let you in? Was it Thyrosus? That's terrible pronounced. Thyrosus. He's as much a gatekeeper as a fly as a warden to a piece of shit. He gives you a telling frown. Well, we could be cordial, or we could be jokeful. I'm sure he realized I might be of use here. Ah, don't boast. You like to help others when your pouch gets empty, and we'd no need of you here. He starts to twist his wrist, spinning his weapon slowly. Take a good look around while you can. White Marshes isn't for strangers. The turf houses are old, covered with lush grasses and flowers, and you can't imagine any large family fitting inside of such a small, one-chambered huts. The alleys are so narrow that only one cart could squeeze through them at once. Your boots have sunk into the mud, the square is covered with deep boot prints. I don't know where I got purple from there. The noise of hammers, shouting, wood splitting, and the shuffling of undead legs pierces through the constant buzzing of insects. Sodal snorts, hunting down flies with its tail. I notice there's only one elder in sight, and he's observing me. He's standing on top of the wooden platform by the building that's unlike any other in the village. His eyes are keen. The left one is dark, the right one is gray, bright. His head and face are shaved, and his simple, undyed robe is even worse shaped than the outfits of his tribe folk. Once Helvis realizes what you're looking at, he lowers his weapon and clears his throat, like a boy caught red-handed. The elder walks away, holding a walking stick with one hand and touching the wall with the other. Orentius, says the mayor, the priest of our fellowship and the one who saved our people. He raises his hand, pointing at the dead shells bustling around the construction site. So we have all these questions here. Obviously, we're not going to start with the other keeper here. We'd like to learn more about White Marshes, but the obvious question on everybody's mind is, tell me about the smell. These dead people don't bother you? I used to listen to stories about them as a kid, he nods for you to follow him. Bao Orentius taught me that they're no different than boars in fire. He dashes forward and swings his poleaxe, bashing a skeleton's shoulder. The arm sinks into the mud while its owner, a bit awkwardly now, keeps trying to climb up a ladder. Halvius bursts out into laughter and the locals look away without a word. See? All you need's control. Look there. He points at the dead shell with remains of flesh on its chest and head. There's a white and brown sparrow sitting on its shoulder, preening its feathers. Even the beasts know that they're not a thing to worry about. The awoken are now like they were yesterday, like they were in the spring, and like they were a year ago. Leave the worrying about them to idiots and unites. I hear what you're saying about the awoken, but your tribe used to be strong without them. Huh, so what, Warden? That was 10 years ago, isn't it? And what isn't it doesn't matter. We needed to trade, yet the others pushed us away. We won't let them choose for us ever again. So before we talk about the Mystery Man, let's talk about White Marshes. Don't bother both of us and yourself. The tribe's been taming the bogs for 5 generations by the fields. He moves towards the gate as if you had no opportunity to see them before. Are from a few seasons ago, thanks to Orentius. We used to live on berries and meat, selling peat and timber, but soon we need no outsiders. All these years of feeding our blood to Saurians, leeches, and merchants, better days are coming. We made 'em come, and we deserve 'em. He fondly wipes his blade with his thumb, then clears his throat, if the right allows. So here's a good thing. You separate yourself from the other settlements. The tribes with the little iron and bone struggle more and more. We're getting ready to welcome plunderers the way they deserve, Tazal. Our palisade wasn't enough, all this. He waves to the wall and with a voice full of pride. Was built in not even 2 years. Can you believe? You glance at the yellowish skeleton that carries 2 large rocks, each too large for any human to lift on their own. So tell me about selling wood. He nods in approval. In the old days, our firewood warmed up all the walls and toes on this side of Hag Hills, Gale Rocks, and there, far north, built its own hamlet for woodcutters, and Howler's Dell grew a fine garden for themselves just to get by without us. They have oaks, cherries, and their own darker birches, have no more reason to trade with us other than the peat. You glance at the buildings. While they are indeed new, most settlements in the province would view them as crude and cramped. Well, let's talk about Orentius. He straightens up. A moose head on his chest bounces enthusiastically. You and many others, but he's swamped by his work, and we have enough threats in the shadows already. If he decides you're trustworthy, he may speak with you once. But why would I even ask him? So we could say I need his guidance, I want to hear the Right's will. I must have convinced him that these undead ought to burn on a pyre. Well, I'm not going to just jump and say that. So I think I want to meet him is probably the best Kira answer here. Because she's not going to say this, and she doesn't really need anybody's guidance. We aren't here to amuse your nosiness. He raises his chin. Ride to the city for years and ask sailors to tell you stories. His voice is dripping with disdain. So, he doesn't trust me enough. Maybe we can figure out how to get his trust. Is a staring around. Why would he be? You pay attention to his confident stance and his strong voice with his usual hint of disdain and spot no signs of a lie. He's hardly ever been here. I have no need of wardens. Well, that's nice. Can we trade? We need what we have, but I'll take a look at what you're bringing if you seek bones. Okay, so he points his blade at those things of interest. The quarrels. Let's take a look at the inventory here. Oh, boy. He points, not this time. Well, I kind of might need those later, so let's say farewell. Now, we have lots of other stuff going on here. If there's a room we can rent for the night, we have a well, we have undead workers. It's all fun and games here. About a room, I guess one of them sighs and tells you to wait where you're standing. After a few minutes, a group of locals approaches more neglected turf houses and start to empty it. They take out old crates, rags, cask, bricks, and they leave them by the outer wall, at least for now. 'Tis an old shed, explains the guard. There, you won't bother anyone. We'll be ready before you need it. So we do have a place to stay here. That's exciting. We can just stay with the undead. What was that rope icon for again? There's a trader here. Okay. Approach the well. The locals observe your hands carefully while you're drawing the water. As you quench your thirst, you try to wash your face and neck, but one of the older women approaches you quickly, wagging her finger. We've not enough for silliness, she rebukes you. Water your horse if you have to, but we need the rest for ourselves. The stern gaze of the other villagers leaves you no room for discussion, which is very exciting in a way because we're in a bog, and yet there's a short of water here in the well. That's not very good. Not being allowed to leave the main square, you observe the shells walking through the gate or helping the builders of the wall. The skeletons are not at all complete. Some of them lack a rib, a foot, or a jaw. Many of their bones are cracked or broken and seem to be connected to each other with nothing at all, as if the pneuma that keeps them moving knows which part should stay firm and which one should twist or bend. Those that keep some of their skin and guts don't smell, rot, or... Well, that answers that question. Or bleed and make you think of dried meat. It's as if the scraps of flesh serve no purpose, and seeing how many of these laborers already have great holes in their stomachs or limbs with revealed bones, it could be that they are just in the middle of the process of becoming like their naked counterparts. The undead loyally fulfill their tasks. So far, you've counted 5 people able to give them orders. Some do so by speaking out loud, while one woman simply looks at a shell no matter how far it is. The workers, while witless, maintain some of their carefulness in their actions. They stop when someone gets in the way and use tools if they know how, avoiding pointless harm to their shells. There may be more than 50 creatures spread across the village, but you can't know how many, and you haven't seen yet. Many of the fresher undead are elders. Among the skeletons, you spot some that used to belong to children, but none of the infants. So we have some options here. Maybe the young shells are too difficult to sight. Maybe they're so different from adult humans that they can't be awoken, or maybe their shells are too weak. I think it would be a difficult sight. A sudden shout cuts the sky, but no one pays attention to it. It turns out a small boy got scared by the quiet approach of a broken shell. So we can go to Helvius again. He has nothing more to say. So, those are the Necromancers, and we know where White Marshes is. So I guess the question now is, do we explore this way, or do we explore this way? I think one of the key parts here is that if we're trying to move through the day, I do want to travel over here and kind of complete the circle, but if we're looking at what time it is right now, it's 10 hours and until the end of the day. We're going to need to backtrack a little bit because I do want to turn in some information to Creeks, and I'm still curious if there's wolves here or if we won't know until we come down there and see. So let's try to go up here. All right, as you ride past the fields, one of the local okay, so we got an event here. One of the local farmers enters the road, gesturing for you to stop. He's holding a rusty sickle and carries a basket on his back, filled with various weeds and a sharpened club. His patched, worn tunic is neglected, but fitting for a farmer. The lean years left his face skinny and his teeth crooked, but his sad eyes hold heartwarming kindness. Hi there, Warden. I gotta get some other voices here. He has a thick local accent. I've been wondering just now, as there's a small matter, you see. Do you know how to read? Oh, that's interesting. I don't, I'm afraid, or no. So, we don't that. I see. He gives you a sad smile. But still, you have a horse, I mean? He raises his eyes as if to make it clear he's aware that you're sitting on a saddle. It is. You ride places. Give me a few moments. Without waiting for your response, he runs to the village and returns with a small sack in his hand. How about you take it to someone smart? Are you calling me not smart? Well, that's really interesting that a road warden doesn't need to know how to read. That explains why some of the road signs are just described with pictures and stuff, too. He unwraps the package and reveals a large wax tablet made of bone. "'Tis a letter from someone I care about, but I'm not sure what it says. I'll give you a coin once you read it for me." You take the tablet and open from his open palm. It's fancy, unlike the wooden ones. On the back, you find an engraving portraying a large furry beast. "My foal troll's hip," the farmer says proudly. "Made for a troll's hip. Made from, for." So, I'm going to say that's a pretty tablet. He puts his hands on his side, his smile with pride. "I did it myself with cold nights and a little iron. Takes thinking to keep your hands busy." So why do you need my help? He frowns as if the answer is obvious. "No merchants come here these days, and no missionaries, and we don't need to read around here." "What about the priest?" He looks at the gate and just realizes you're right. I asked him, as his tone starts cold. "But he was no help. He said letters are blurry." "They look fine to me." So we take the stuff. That's exciting. He waves. You step away, clearing the path. "I'll wait for you with the coin, I promised." So we have a tablet now. Can we click on it to see more? Wax tablets are a more common writing instrument used in the north. You can't read the contents of the tablets on your own. We are illiterate. And we had no choice in that. I'm curious if we were a scholar or a magi, if we would be able to read it. I really would like to think that a scholar would be able to read what's on the tablet. But we are going to once again go west of Foggy Lake. You follow the road spread between the hills and lonely trees until you reach a solid wooden bridge, not older than a generation. You ride uphill, but Sodal manages to keep up. The dark woods in the south are behind a gently humming creek, while the forest on your right is trimmed by the locals. It's a peaceful journey, at least for some time. After a few minutes, you spot a group of wolves feasting on a fallen, furry beast, maybe a Wiznet. One of them looks towards you. Let's ride a bit faster. Oh, good. So we didn't get wolf today. The road fades into an old tunnel. There are no signs of mining, no signposts, no human voices. The ceiling is supported by wooden beams, but the light only reaches so far. The chilling wind mercilessly bends a few lonely trees while the shrubs oppose the weather patiently. The side path leading west is somewhat maintained, and you find both boot prints and cart tracks, leading higher into the mountains. Your mount observes the area anxiously, so you stay for a moment to give it a good scratch under its neck and say some confident-sounding rubbish. Who's a good Sodal, I guess. You unpack all things you need to make a new simple torch, a log, some old rugs, a bit of oil. You grab your tinderbox and sit on the ground for a couple of minutes, preparing a flint and then linen charcloth. Decades ago, before the southern invasion, people used fire strikers made of thick steel, but all you have is a cube-like piece of harsh pyrite. It's not the best, but it's enough to make a couple of sparks. The loud flickering, the yellow light unevenly hits your cheek with heat. You raise your torch, but it's hold it at an angle, letting the oil drip to the ground. So I'm guessing that's all part of our adventurer pack here somewhere. So all kinds of tools. Look, we still have a horse. I hope we don't lose the horse. So let's see where the tunnel leads. Oh, sweet, we're spelunking. Okay. For a few minutes, you find a fairly straight corridor. The timber supporting the ceilings is decaying, but you don't spot any signs of collapse. The floor is littered with bones and rotting food, most likely dragged here by a wild beast, but there are signs of soot above you and boot prints left in the dried mud. You reach a crossroads and stop in place. There's no sconce in sight, so you'd have to constantly carry the torch or lose it for good, and it won't last for long anyway. The draft is hardly noticeable, so looking for an exit in the dark could be dangerous. Okay, so we're not going spelunking. Sodal's looking around, but so far no other beasts have shown up. So my cats are being really dumb in the other room as well. So if you hear more of that, I apologize. But we have an old tunnel. You'll have to take a detour as long as this place is unexplored. So we need to find a light source. That's good to know. How much time are we at? 7 hours, sometime before dusk. So let's go up this way. The detour is not as smooth as the main road. The wagon can make it through, but even so, you have to squeeze between some narrow corridors, hoping no beast is going to jump at you from the ledge. You walk, leading your mount with an axe in your hand. In the middle of the road, after reaching one of the higher hills, you take a glance ahead. Even from here, you see the sun reflecting from the ocean. But there's also a pillar of smoke coming from the distant west. There may be a volcano. Oh, really? Somewhere behind the horizon, but you can't tell if it's part of the peninsula or maybe a yet stranger island. Oh, I don't like what I hear here. Once you get to the other side of the mountain, you find the northern entrance to a tunnel blocked by a large bronze gate. So you take so tall and wide that you're not sure if it's something you could open with your muscles alone. There's a keyhole as well, as large as your hand. Yeah, unlocking the tunnel would save me a lot of time. Alright, well yeah, no one's tried to steal the door, that's true. Oh, we're in another town, okay. You get a good look at the village from a distant hill. It's torn between farming and crags and succumbing to their whims. The gray boulders are like the rotting teeth of a giant, sprinkled around by ancient spirit. The carved cave mouths are covered with wooden doors. There are only a few windows, and you can only imagine how dark and cold the gouged out rooms have to be. The buildings and walls, made of logs or stone blocks, must be much younger than the caves. The impressive whitewashed keep standing on top of the hill of the west could just as well have been built in the city. Smoke rises from both sides of the wild river. You see many busy souls as they go around moving food, tools, and timber over the bridge. Your arrival at the eastern gate causes some curious glances, but the only person who approaches you is a man who's sitting at a table, discussing something with a few elders. He's carrying a crossbow on his back and a long rusty knife at his side, but doesn't reach for them. The man has to be older than 40. He wears an elegant blue-green linen tunic, but no armor. His skin is yellowish, like seaweed seen through a sunbeam. His long gray... Oh, that's a very pallid kind of yellowish then. His long gray hair is tied to a ponytail, and his beard is trimmed to half a finger length. A few large cysts make him look sickly, but his powerful, truculent voice adds to him a strength and confidence. Let me take a drink here so I can try to get a truculent voice. Cheers, stranger. You've reached Gale Rocks, you did. He observes your mount, then looks at the path behind you. I see no caravan from here. Are they coming? He suddenly meets your eyes, and his tone gets even harsher. Or are you here to idle about? So listen to the nearby conversations. You only have to get used to some of the local words and phrases before you're only heard coming from the mouths of the oldest city folk. The vast similarities in the tongue to Hovelin only make these differences more distracting. So we could be friendly, or we could be jokey. This guy doesn't seem like a joker. Or we could be distance. I would kind of rather be... I don't want to bother anybody. So I'm a Roadwarden. I'm here to solve problems. I think that may be better. Another Roadwarden! Are all the parents in the South too dumb to teach their kids how to keep their fingers in their own pots? He shakes his head with an exaggerated motion and looks at the elders at the table. A Roadwarden! See that? Trying to cut the conversation short, you lead Sodal inside, but you're stopped right away. Leave it by the walls until it's nightfall, right? We ain't cleaning our roads after any drifters, bards, or adventurers. He speaks with a growling disgust. Don't worry. We'll keep an eye on it. You tether your horse to the stems of a shrub, and the man nods with approval, then turns around. Well, I'm not gonna... This person clearly doesn't want to show me around. Can you tell me anything about the village? He stops in place, then glances at your boots. Right. We fish... We salt fish, we sell fish. Our brave ones trade barrels for whatever we can get at the villages, but, he shrugs, not much else to it. You see, life here is slow. Without another word, he returns to the group of elders, where he helps one of them remove bones from their meal. You go to... Well, we could go to the gatekeeper. We just talked to the gatekeeper. The guard you met with at the first arrival in the village is leaning against the wall, observing the gates in your mount. Whenever Sodal snorts, the gatekeeper reaches his axe. He sighs when he notices your gaze. What? Oh. You know what? Let's push it. More hospitable. He gives you an irritated glance, then stares into the river. Most settlements have fewer memories of getting robbed by drifters, or wasting their time with good-for-nothing adventurers. All them free souls think they have a right to our patience and care, as if they're some savior of ours, each of them. Well, we've been beating this land for centuries, with rights helping with the patience of our forebears, and if anyone wants our respect, they better work for it. When you notice he's getting away with theft must not be easy task, he answers slowly. Oh, when you notice that getting away with theft must not be easy, he answers slowly. Don't get any weird ideas, outsider. It's easy to disappear in the hills or at the crossroads. We've got to be vigilant, more than our allies, the stonecutters at Old Pagos. They can let themselves be more open to strangers. They have neighbors, gentler roads, and less of a wall to defend. Well, a few of the workers sing a lively tune, and many of the others nod to the rhythm. Well, that's fun. So it's like the fun dead here instead of the undead. Well, I'm looking for someone. Whoa, shit. Okay. What kind of person of service am I looking for? Huh. Well, I guess we can just start. Let's look at our journal real quick, because we were told to come up here. And what were we told about places here? We haven't gotten much in the way of old places here. Okay, and Gale Rock's where we are now. So we don't have any information on Gale Rocks yet. I guess I could look for Asterion. See, this is part of the fun of not sitting and playing all at once. You have to think a little bit about what you're doing. But I think, you know, let's just go in blind a little bit. Let's look for a trader. A young carrier chuckles. And what would you buy without a wagon and donkeys? We sell barrels of fish, sacks of salt. When a caravan comes, we empty a warehouse, then fill it up again with food. When you ask her if she's sure there's nothing useful that a lone traveler could get in such a large village, she seems a bit embarrassed. Well, we have a weaponsmith, but he doesn't sell any blades to outsiders. But maybe Rufina the tailor? All right, I look for someone else. Let's type in Rufina. I hope I typed that in right. You get directions to one of the smaller buildings, which turns out to consist only of one spacious chamber. Like other caves in the village, it lacks sunlight, but the workbench standing right next to the entrance is well lit by an oil lamp. The old iron lantern is decorated with the shapes of seaweed and monstrous tentacles. On the counter, you see threads, scraps of clothes, old tunics, and some boots. Behind it, there's a mature woman, though you can't precisely guess her age. The flame dancing behind her movements distorts the shadow cast by her wrinkles and large nose. Her bright red tunic is light, made with something lighter than hemp or wool. The sleeves end at her elbows, allowing her hands to sew together two pieces of fabric. Let's try good old greetings. She runs her dark yellow eyes over your clothes. Her hair must be getting gray, but the colorful wooden beads among them distract you right away. Cheers, stranger. You need something patched up? After you nod, she looks deeper into the store. Oh, wow, I actually do need something patched up. Good, as I'm better at fixing tears than making togs. Take a look. Oh, finally, someone friendly. Indeed, when there's plenty of shelves and cupboards covered with pants, tunics, jackets, robes, hats, boots, and bags, many of them seem old or made from 2 or 3 combined pieces of garment. We buy outfits from other villages, explained the tailor, maintaining her bored tone. And as they get worn and damaged, I turn them into something new. Do you have anything for sale? My neighbors walk in and put on whatever they feel like wearing, but I ain't wasting our fabric on outsiders. Maybe you like some jewelry? When you mention you'd rather take something useful for a traveler, she hesitates. Well, if you really need, I can pack you up some old tools of mine. They'd help you fix your armor and togs without anyone's help, though it ain't as easy as you would think. So let's discuss prices. Wow. Okay, so work for 2 hours. We have Gamson repairs, outfit repairs, Gamson repair set for 9. That looks right. A sewing kit or a winged hourglass. Showing our loyalty to stuff here. Well, you know what? Let's pay a coin for this. We'll do some business here. Your jacket is as good as the tailor can make it. So there we go. Our vitality's 3, our armor's 3. So it looks like this is the sale. So thanks. All right, so we have Rufina the tailor. I could learn some more about the wares this village has to offer. Well, let's look for an inn, I guess. You search for an inn is futile, and the locals are quite proud that they have no place to waste their days with mugs and dice. They explain that if any caravan needs to stay the night, there's always enough space in an empty one of the caves. If you need a room to spend the night, you are told Fulvia may have something. Well, let's look for Fulvia. Thank you, developer, for conveniently bolding the names. Following the instructions, you reach a building with an entrance from the garden side. You step through the door leading into the mouth of the cave and call the person where you were told to speak with Fulvia, the roomkeeper. She comes to you from a half-dark corridor. She fits the description you heard, slightly round, partially because of the tunic and heavy pants hidden beneath the dark green robe. She looks like an eccentric city priest, with the massive hourglass made of beautifully polished driftwood she wears as the kerchief covering both her neck and her hair. One feature that hasn't been mentioned by the locals are her eyes, gray, asymmetrical, partly closed and unfocused. When she gets closer, she turns her head, gazing into the rock and pointing her left ear at you. Her steps are confident, and her hands keep touching the walls on both sides. She's old, wrinkled, and paled, but her voice remains strong. Okay, blind lady. You find your first instinct is to nod, only then you realize it won't really help you much. She repeats, "You smell of horse. Room?" "Yes." "Right." She simply walks down the corridor between the few humble chambers, some of which are inhabited by sleeping souls. After a few steps, the light coming from the entrance helps you no more. You follow the sounds of the boots and the smell of the rosemary perfume. Then suddenly you hear a rock hitting something made of metal. The candle makes you sigh with relief. "What color?" After a moment, she tries again. "The horse coat." Well, we can choose all different kinds of options for a horse, or a zebra, apparently. I'm going to go with a gray horse. She lets out a surprised grunt. "So far from the growling mountain, I guess there are some gray hills around here." The room is far more comforting. The ceiling is far from comforting. The ceiling is only a head above you, and the walls are rounded with bare of any decoration and only chests more like crude crate. At least the dried grasses covering the sleeping pallet are bug-free and smell of freshness. "You don't have to share it," she says with amusement. "How much for this delight?" She chuckles. "Don't worry, you won't be cold and we won't let anything mold here. I have a nose for it." She demonstrates a loud sniff. "You can work for the village for merely a few hours in the morning, move some weights around, or you can pay me 2 coins. I won't take less, and I need none at all. I'll just throw it to Servinia's chest in a few days." Severina. Okay. So, Servinia. Oh no. Okay, I'm gonna have to check the video and look here. So, fish. You head to the building that releases not only smoke, but also the smell of roasting meat and spices. In front of you, you find a sweating, wrinkled woman with a shaved head and a simple rag-like band on her hips, and another one restricting her breasts too tightly, as if the movement outside of her control would be too much to take. She doesn't even spare you a glance, too busy mixing ingredients in her bowls and cutting vegetables and wooden boards. Her eyes are focused, but whenever she tilts her head high enough for you to see her face, you spot a subtle yet challenging smile. Inside the building, you find another few people, most of them elders, as well as a large fireplace that's smoking a few dozen hanging fish. When one of the cooks currently scaling fish notices you, he lowers his head and with a bored voice addresses the woman. "Portia, you have an outsider, you do." The woman turns towards you in a blink of an eye, standing on spread legs, as if her shell can't spare you more than a single flinch. "I didn't notice you there, stranger. You hungry?" She reaches for a bowl, but stops suddenly. "Right, we serve more than 100 stomachs, we do. So you better give me a reason, such as..." "Everyone works for their share. Join them." She points at the people inside the hollowed cave. But after a few moments, she shakes her head left and right as if to get back to her work. "Or pay me a dragon, I guess. It'll land in the keep's chest. So, your group cooks for the entire village?" She grins towards you. "Right, safer than fishing, you know." She squeezes her revealed stomach, which is unusually flat. You notice how muscular her arm is. I move a lot, so I can eat a lot. She lets out a chuckle, then moves a large basket of freshly cooked apples inside the building. I have only a few years before my back gives up, and I've done enough to deserve my slower days. So what does a meal cost here? We can work for 2 hours for a meal, or we can do 3 bunches of wild plants for a food ration. We're actually not super hungry right now, so we don't necessarily need to do this yet. But we are going to step away for now. So we found some people. I'm going to need to review the video and see about the name that I missed or didn't miss here. But unfortunately, due to some stuff that came up when I obviously had to stop recording once or twice, this one is going to be a little bit shorter today. So we still have some travel we can do. Oh my god, this Gale Rocks isn't even the end. Apparently this is the end of the realm. But we are close to the end of the day, so I'm going to need to make some choices about what I want to do. But for now, we'll stop here. This is Asher with more Roadwarden. Like I said, I'm trying to keep these videos pretty consistently length, but sometimes life happens, and this is one of those times. If you notice some editing, it's because just a few things came up, and then just a few kitties got in a rumble-tumble with each other. So it's all is well until it's not. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. If you have any suggestions for what I should look for here, by all means tell me, although I can't say for sure when I'm going to be recording the next episode. But you all take care.